Good morning. Today we will be discussing the penultimate chapter of our class, Osmoregulation and Excretion. And I want to use this chapter to highlight how everything again hangs together and how when something goes wrong with one system, all other systems are affected. So therefore, my application for this chapter is what happens when your excretory system, your kidneys, do not work. So the consequences of what's called renal failure. We have briefly discussed dialysis when we were using dialysis tubing in one of our first labs. What happens is when a person has renal failure, instead of the blood passing through the kidney, is passed through an external dialysis machine that then tries to filter the blood before it's returned to the body. And I'm saying it's trying to filter the blood because it cannot do the same good job as a functioning excretory system. Plus, it is very drawing and exhausting to be hooked up to the machine sometimes several times a week for several hours. So let's thank our kidneys today for working. I'm asking you to consider the 4 different functions or major functions of the excretory system that I asked you about in question 2, and then to draw on your knowledge from previous chapters and explain possible consequences of renal failure. I give you one example, and that is that the volume of fluid in the blood needs to be maintained, and if that doesn't happen, cells might shrink or burst. The blood pressure can become too high, leading to heart problems, or too low, leading to inadequate supply of energy to cells. Out of whack water balance might also lead to solute concentrations that are too dilute to support vital functions such as nerve impulse transmission, or too concentrated, causing toxicity. Excessive dryness can impair mucus production and movement of cilia in the innate immune response, and excessive fluid can lead to swelling and impairment of motor and cognitive function. So, what are the basic functions of our urinary excretory system? Just as I mentioned before, it is to regulate the volume of fluid in the body, the osmolarity of the extracellular fluid, and of course these 2 functions are intimately connected, as volume of fluid has something to do with the concentration of the solutes in that fluid. It's also regulating individual solutes such as sodium, calcium, hydrogen in the appropriate concentrations, and it is responsible for the elimination of potentially toxic wastes and foreign compounds, notably nitrogenous wastes. So the challenge is nitrogen. Nitrogenous waste. And the question is, why is that? First of all, which of the macromolecules that we digest contain the most or nitrogen at all? Consider this. Stop. Yes, if you said proteins and nucleic acids, you are correct. Remember that all amino acids have an amine group and that the nucleic acid have a nitrogenous base. These are removed and then converted to nitrogenous waste, whatever the body doesn't need to build its own nitrogen using compounds. So why nitrogen is a problem is because in water, nitrogen forms ammonia, which interacts immediately with other available moisture in the skin, eyes, oral cavity, respiratory tract, and particularly mucous surfaces, to form the very caustic ammonium hydroxide. Ammonium hydroxide causes the necrosis of tissue, that's cell death, through disruption of cell membrane lipids. It's called also saponification. That's reminding us sapon comes from soap. So similar to soaps, disrupts the membrane lipids, leading to cellular destruction. As cell proteins break down, water is extracted, resulting in an inflammatory response that causes further damage. That's why organisms have to get rid of it. But the challenge is to get rid of nitrogenous wastes without losing other valuable solutes. And that's where that sorting, filtering comes in. Different groups of animals have evolved different forms of nitrogenous waste. You cannot say that one is better than the other, but the environment is selected for different solutions to this common problem of getting rid of nitrogenous wastes. So if we start here on the left side with aquatic animals, including most bony fish, they excrete their nitrogenous waste in the form of ammonia. Ammonia, NH3, as you know, contains just one nitrogen molecule. It doesn't cost energy to make it. However, it's very toxic. Fish can afford excreting their waste in this form because they have a lot of water available to dilute it. Mammals, most amphibians, sharks, and some bony fishes excrete their nitrogenous waste as urea. You can see urea here in the uppermost picture. It contains 2 nitrogen atoms, so it costs a little more to put it together in this form. However, it is less toxic and therefore doesn't need to be as dilute. And then you see birds and many other reptiles, insects, land snails, excrete their nitrogen in the form of uric acid. It contains 4 nitrogens. It is energy costly to put it together. However, it is non-toxic, so there is no water needed or very little water needed to excrete it, no water needed to make it non-toxic. To summarize, ammonia needs lots of water, but consumes little energy to make it. And we are going down here from lots of water to less water to very little water, and the opposite with energy. So we have 2 curves going from lots of water with little energy to little water and most energy. So the choice of waste product links to the energy need and availability of the different organisms, their habitat, whether there is water or not, and their phylogeny, meaning their evolutionary relationship, their ancestors, what was present in the ancestor, which explains why marine mammals are not excreting ammonia. And it also explains why giraffes, desert animal, actually excrete urea and not uric acid. The lifestyle plays a role that explains why birds use uric acid, and that is because they cannot afford to dilute their nitrogenous waste and then fly with that dilute urine in their bodies. Consider this and this question, which I just answered, and this question, and the next video will show, go on from here.